The Nine Realms had never been so silent. Following Ragnarok, Thor found himself adrift among the stars, guiding a battered refugee ship carrying what little remained of Asgard's people. The vast emptiness of space seemed to reflect the void. In his heart, as he gazed into the distance, his hand tightened on Stormbreaker, the weight of his failures a constant companion. Valkyrie approached from behind, her usual stoic demeanor shadowed by unease. "Thor, we have a problem," she began, her voice low. "The dead, they're walking again." Thor turned to her, his brows furrowed. "The dead?" She nodded grimly. "Reports from the other realms. Warriors who fell in battle during Ragnarok. They've been seen. But there's something wrong with them. They're hollow, lifeless, like they're being controlled by something or someone." Before Thor could respond, the faint hum of the Bifrost echoed through the ship. Loki emerged from the portal, his expression unusually serious. "Brother," he said, skipping his usual theatrics, "you're not going to like this." Thor narrowed his eyes. "What is it now, Loki?" Loki held up a shard of Yggdrasil, its vibrant glow dim and erratic. "Reality itself is unraveling. I've traced it to the ruins of Asgard. Something, or someone, is tampering with the very fabric of the Nine Realms." Thor's grip on Stormbreaker tightened as he processed. The news. First Hela, then Thanos, and now this? Will the realms ever know peace? Loki smirked faintly, though there was no humor in it. "Peace is boring, you'd hate it." Thor shot him a glare before addressing the room. "Prepare the ship, we're going back to Asgard. If someone's playing games with our reality, they're about to learn what happens when you toy with the God of Thunder." Far away, in the shattered remains of Asgard, Dr. Manhattan stood amidst the ruins. His glowing blue form radiated serenity as he reached out to touch a fractured pillar. With a mere thought, the stone reassembled itself, its cracks vanishing as if they had never existed. "This cycle of destruction and rebirth is fascinating," Manhattan murmured to himself. "Gods who cling to their myths, bound by the stories they tell. What happens when the narrative changes?" The air around him rippled as he began to experiment. Time twisted and folded, creating echoes of battles long past. Spectral images of Odin battling Surtur and Thor clashing with Hela played out around him. Across the Nine Realms, the effects of his tampering began to manifest. In Midgard, ancient Viking burial mounds split open, releasing warriors whose eyes glowed faintly blue. On Vanaheim, the spirits of fallen defenders rose from the ashes, their movements jerky and unnatural. Even in Hell, the realm of the dead, Hela herself watched in stunned silence as her dominion was disturbed. On the refugee ship, Thor was restless. His sleep was plagued by visions of Heimdall, who appeared standing on the golden horizon of an endless Asgard. "Thor," the gatekeeper's voice echoed, "a force beyond the comprehension of gods threatens the balance of the realms. This is no mortal, this is no god, this is something far greater." Thor awoke with a start, his heart pounding. Summoning Valkyrie, Loki, and Hulk, he explained the urgency of the situation. "If this being can twist reality and reanimate the dead, it's more dangerous than anything we've ever faced. We must act now." When they arrived at the ruins of Asgard, the air was thick with an unnatural energy. The skies above rippled, with hues of blue and silver, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with power. As they moved cautiously through the ruins, a glowing figure appeared before them, hovering serenely above the ground. "Thor Odinson," the figure said, his voice calm and resonant. "You've come to witness the experiment." Thor stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as electricity sparked around him. "Who are you, and what have you done to my people?" "I am Dr. Manhattan," the figure replied. "I am observing the stories your kind weaves. Your myths and legends fascinate me. I am merely testing their limits." Thor raised Stormbreaker, his voice thundering. "You're playing with lives? This isn't a game." Manhattan tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "All things are connected, Odinson. Your stories, your battles, your people, they are threads in a tapestry. I am simply rearranging them to see what emerges." Before Thor could respond, Loki lunged forward, summoning his magic. "You're not the only one who can rewrite the rules," Loki declared, hurling a blast of green energy. Manhattan raised a hand, and time seemed to freeze around Loki. "You misunderstand me," he said, turning his attention back to Thor. "You cannot harm me, nor can you stop what is happening. The destruction of your realm was inevitable. All I am doing is exploring the aftermath." The skies over Asgard's ruins darkened as Thor summoned the full force of the storm. Lightning illuminated the shattered landscape, casting flickering shadows across the ruins. Dr. Manhattan stood unmoved, his glowing blue form unshaken by the display of divine power. Thor gripped Stormbreaker tightly. "You might not be a god," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the heavens, "but you will learn to fear one." With a thunderous roar, Thor leaped into the air, bringing Stormbreaker down in a mighty arc. The axe crashed into the ground where Manhattan stood, splitting the earth with the force of the strike. Energy rippled outward in waves, shattering debris and sending Valkyrie and Loki stumbling back. But when the dust cleared, Manhattan stood unharmed, watching Thor with detached curiosity. "Interesting," he murmured. "You equate power with destruction. Is that all your kind knows?" Thor snarled, summoning another bolt of lightning. This time he hurled it directly at Manhattan, the energy tearing through the air with ferocity. Manhattan raised a hand, and the lightning dispersed into harmless sparks. "Enough!" Thor charged again, but Manhattan gestured, and time seemed to warp around him. Thor froze mid-stride, his body caught in an invisible grip. Manhattan stepped closer, his glowing eyes locking with Thor's. "You are powerful, Odinson, but you are bound by the rules of this existence. I am not." Suddenly, a green blast struck Manhattan from behind. Loki, his magic crackling around him, grinned. "Let's see how you like a trickster's touch." Manhattan turned to face Loki, who conjured illusions of himself to encircle the blue figure. Dozens of Lokis moved in unison, their voices taunting. "Catch me if you can!" Manhattan's gaze swept across the illusions. "Deception, another hallmark of your kind." He extended his hand, and every illusion vanished, leaving the real Loki gasping for breath as the energy surrounding him dissipated. Before Manhattan could act further, Valkyrie and Hulk joined the fray. Hulk, roaring with fury, smashed the ground, sending massive chunks of debris flying toward Manhattan. Valkyrie, riding her winged steed, dove in with her sword, aimed at his back. Manhattan observed their approach with calm detachment. With a flick of his wrist, the debris disintegrated into dust, and Valkyrie's steed was gently stopped mid-flight, floating harmlessly in the air. Hulk's massive fists swung toward Manhattan, but they passed through him as though he were an illusion. Thor, finally breaking free of the temporal hold, unleashed a deafening battle cry. He hurled Stormbreaker again, this time channeling every ounce of power he had. The axe, glowing with divine energy, hurtled toward Manhattan with unimaginable speed. For the first time, Manhattan raised both hands, catching the axe mid-air. The energy coursing through Stormbreaker clashed with his own, creating a blinding explosion of light that knocked everyone back. Thor, Valkyrie, Loki, and Hulk were flung across the ruins, landing hard among the rubble. When the light faded, Manhattan stood holding Stormbreaker. The weapon's glow had dimmed, its energy seemingly drained. Manhattan studied it curiously before dropping it to the ground. "This weapon is impressive," he said, "forged from the heart of a dying star, imbued with the power of kings. Yet even it is bound by the limits of your reality." Thor struggled to his feet, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. You speak of limits, but all I see is a coward who hides behind his power. Fight me if you dare. Manhattan tilted his head. You misunderstand me, Odinson. This is not a fight. This is an observation. Thor's eyes burned with fury. Then let me show you something worth observing. He unleashed a storm unlike anything the realms had ever seen. Lightning struck from every direction, the winds howled, and the earth itself trembled. The sheer force of the storm forced even Manhattan to pause, his form flickering for the briefest moment. In that moment, Thor saw an opening. He charged forward, grabbing Stormbreaker from the ground and swinging it with all his might. The axe collided with Manhattan's chest, and for the first time, the god of thunder felt resistance. Manhattan's form shuddered, and a ripple of energy surged outward, distorting the very fabric of reality. The ruins of Asgard twisted and shifted, images of past battles flashing before their eyes. Thor held firm, pushing against the overwhelming force. "You are persistent," Manhattan said, his voice calm despite the strain. "Perhaps there is something to your myths after all." With a sudden burst of energy, Manhattan pushed Thor back, sending him crashing into the rubble. The storm subsided, leaving the battlefield eerily silent. Thor struggled to rise, his body trembling from exhaustion. Manhattan stood over him, his form glowing brighter than ever. "This has been enlightening," he said, "but your defiance serves no purpose. The realms are mine to shape as I see fit." Thor glared up at him, his spirit unbroken. "You'll never break me. As long as I draw breath, I will fight for the 9 realms." Manhattan regarded him for a long moment before turning away. "We shall see, Odinson. Your resilience intrigues me. Perhaps there is more to learn." With that, Manhattan vanished, leaving Thor and his companions battered but alive. The battle was over, but the war had just begun.